Welcome back, everybody. I see that people are slowly trickling in. Yeah, let's wait a couple more minutes for people to come in. OT. Okay, excellent. Good. So the next session will be reporting back from the breakout groups. So I hope you enjoyed your discussions. You had inspiring talks, came up with new ideas, shared your lessons and experiences with others. So we have for each of the leads, we have 3 minutes to report back and tell us what they discussed, what are the take-home messages, the lessons. So if Tilahun is here, then we could start with Tilahun. Are you already back? Okay. Then maybe Richard. Richard, I see you here. Did you want to get us started and
Sure.
let us know what the exciting discussions you had, what the lessons were, the highlights?
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we had an excellent discussion. So just to remind the audience, we looked at when it comes to sustainable finance, how do we bundle CIS and CSA solutions, and what are the mechanisms needed? Just to remind us, when we think of scaling CSA and CIS, we are providing investors, investees, and smallholder farmers with the data and risk tools that are needed to better, firstly, understand the risks related to climate change, and then secondly, identify and implement the strategies that are needed to adapt to climate change. So what we're doing is effectively de-risking investments. And by de-risking investments, we can attract and mobilize more capital to where it is needed. So bundling CIS and CSA with sustainable finance should be a priority. So yeah, we had an excellent discussion, lots of key talking points. I will try and quickly summarize those. I probably have 1 minute left. Firstly, it's important that through CSA and CIS, we're looking at the business case. So we are piloting, testing, and ultimately scaling that. So this comes with all the partners that we are working with, and ultimately then that leverages onto the private capital. That's the end goal. So one clear message that came out was how we can really look at the business models. Secondly, another important point came out in terms of incentives. So these are not just incentives for the small scale farmer, but also how do we ensure that the private investor is aligned. And here we should look at sustainably linked products, for example, and then bundling the CSA and CIS onto that. And then a third component was digital. Digital is critical because when you're trying to reach small-scale farmers, of course, that is high volume, high transaction costs, low volume, I beg your pardon, and it becomes very difficult. So bundling solutions with digital is one avenue that we can actually lower that cost. And then finally, we looked at, we need to look at innovative finance solutions. So, and the Dutch Fund for Climate Development is one example where we bring together all the key partners and coming up with a solution together. And this really comes with the technical assistance that is needed, and the technical assistance in the form of the CIS, CSA, etc. So I think that's enough. I'm probably overstepped my time, but I'll send that back to you, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. No, we are happy to have granted you a couple more minutes. Very, very good insights. Thank you so much for sharing. So we'll try Tilahun again. I think his mic is working now.
Thank you.
Please
Thank you very much.
let us know what you guys discussed. What are the highlights, the lessons? Thank you.
Yeah, no, we didn't want to stop the discussion. Time was very short. In our group, we recognize that climate smart agriculture is a knowledge intensive engagement, and it requires different pathways and conventional inputs of seeds and fertilizers, and we need to operate at different scales, at farm, at landscape, and macro level. But most importantly, really, we have to identify, depending on the local context, we have to identify where we have the highest level of beneficiaries, while we acknowledge that there's a need to interact and to manage all these different skills, including at a country and a regional scale, because we have regional institutions which are coming together and develop policies that are relevant to the region. When it comes to the pathways, we also agree with the second team. We thought knowledge intensive innovations can be easily transferred through digital pathways and platforms, particularly because most of the continent in Africa now, young people have mobile phones, so it's possible to reach with really distinctive context-specific content on climate smart agriculture, but also with the right incentives to adopt it, be it the insurance, the market opportunities, and really linking the different pieces of technology and practice together. That can be then transferred to millions using digital platforms. But in all this, we realize that there's a need to create capacity in the extension system, because most of the extension agents we have are either not there or are thinly trained, usually trained in rain-fed agriculture. So there's a need to capacitize them at the local level, but also create capacity at a national level, including the research system. And all that together may facilitate change at a scale. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much, Tilahun. So again, digital as a key ingredients for scaling. Thank you so much. Then we go to the third group. I don't know if Ibrahima or Sabine will report back to us, please.
Yeah, hi, I will report back. So the third group was about how we can ensure inclusiveness of gender and other social groups in climate smart agriculture and climate information services. And yeah, we had, again, also not enough time. Focus was on really how can it be done? And there were some really good lessons to really emphasize how important it is to, from the beginning in any investment, ensure that the objectives are understood, and that we from the beginning build really evidence on where and how gender and inclusiveness can be incorporated in value chains, and then really capacitate all stakeholders throughout the process in gender and inclusiveness aspects, and thereby use women and all the different social groups not as recipients but really as partners to make sure that the gender relevant issues are being understood, as the local solutions are most critical, especially when it comes to disadvantaged groups. The more the need is also to really bring the issues up to policymakers. So there needs to be space for this. And one critical issue always is the access to finance. So this needs to be really relevant everywhere. We had some practical examples on how we can then reach these different social groups. And there were experiences saying we really need to look at the family as a unit, women, youth, husbands, and we need to create an environment where they talk about the issues at home, because that would create a better local environment on decision makings and how this decision can be taken forward. That means, and this would apply to all the nodes along the value chain, not only at the farm level, but even at the business level, because the decisions are made as a social unit. And when it comes with regards to CIS, we again pointed out how critical it is to really do a proper diagnostic as the beginning. What are the communication channels that different groups are using, and where can we then pitch this information? It might mean that women don't have access to cell phones, then to go through the local community networks, to the schools, through the families again, and in particular engage the youth to reach out to their mothers, to their sisters, as family units. So the family was really a very important component to bring climate change adaptation and smart agriculture and CIS together. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Sabine. No, very good. So gender from the beginning, capacity building across levels up to policy, and I liked especially to involve the youth to reach the mothers and the female in the household. Very good, thank you so much. So we have just about I think a bit less than 10 minutes for question and answer. So while you type your question, I have here one from the previous session that I'm gonna ask to whoever would like to reply. So I mean, it is okay. The question is: all the panelists have mentioned the private sector. What is the key bottleneck faced in scaling up private sector activities with small-scale producers? Where do we need to focus to get more farmers earning well from value chains? Anybody from the panelists or the chairs of the breakout groups who'd like to reply? I see Richard.
Shall I go first, and then others can jump in?
Yep, excellent.
And thank you for that, Bruce, because that topic came up in our discussion as well. And it is a challenge, right? Because when you look at small-scale farmers, and as I mentioned, it's a small ticket size, high transaction volume, so it's not very attractive for investors. So there are a number of pathways. One is we need to look at the facilitization. So, and there we're looking at aggregators and even matchmakers, right? So we're looking at the agribusiness deal room who are actually building up that pipeline. And they're the ones that are quite closely connected to small-scale farmers. And there's an opportunity to work with some of the SMEs that work closely with small-scale farmers. So not to say that we directly provide services to small-scale farmers, but indirectly through the SME. So it's looking at what are those channels we can do that with. And then I also mentioned on delivery channels important. So we're looking at how can we improve the capacity of local regional banks, for example, to better lend to small-scale farmers? Can we look at internally building the capacity for them to understand what risks small-scale farmers face, and then hopefully that would then result in more financing that flowing to that direction. I'll stop there, and if anyone would like to add on to that.
Very good. Thank you, Richard. Tilahon or Sabine, did you want to jump in on that question?
Yeah, I probably would like to add on what Robert said. You know, one of the challenges we are facing is that, you know, most of the market opportunities are around cities where there is access to market infrastructure. So farmers who are far away from towns are always in disadvantage. So what do we do with them when it comes to the incentives? And one strategy we are trying in AICCRA is, you know, capacitating agro dealers and connect them with major hub agro dealers, but also link them with extension. You know, and when we talk about the village-based advisories, while they give the extension support, because they are not paid, they are also, somehow serving as traders by, products, but also bringing inputs, and are strongly linked to the agro dealers. And that aggregation at the end of the day will bring, the major traders into their localities. And that sustains the system by its own, but also making sure that, farmers are getting the inputs along with the knowledge and getting the outputs, which is, continuous and sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. So agro dealers and extension services to reach rural communities. I don't know, Sabine, if you want to say something to that. Otherwise, I have another question also. So maybe I can read that, and then you can choose or also not respond. Anybody else who would like to jump on in here. So good discussion on CSA and CIS. Now, what is the best way of packaging CIS products? I ask so because no matter how close CIS is taken to farming communities, the use for decision making is still low. So adoption, issue of adoption, challenge of adoption of climate information services. Any reactions, ideas on that, on how this can be improved?
I can start.
Please.
Peter. One I think approach would be first to understand the variability of the systems. The information we give to the Sahel is completely different from the information we give to the Ethiopian highlands or to the Congo forest areas. So really knowing our clients, knowing our systems, and identifying our entry points, and then unpacking that information along with those lines will be very important. The second thing is that our countries and target groups are not as the same, as a different level of intensification. A Kenyan farmer probably has much more knowledge and access to technology than a Mozambican farmer. So really understanding that dynamics and the investment areas would be very, very important. Stop here.
Thank you. So further tailoring the information, the climate information services, the information provided through those services to local context, to the clients, to the farmers, to increase uptake and adoption. Sabine, please.
Yeah, in addition to that, I would say really important to empower local communities to express their need for information and diagnose properly along the entire value chain on what type of information is needed. So if we keep on focusing on production without really solving market issues for climate smart commodities, the information will not be finding its incentive to be used. And here we need information technologies along with market infrastructure, often very basic price quality relationship, still not really
very
available.
Good. Yeah, very, very good point. Thank you so much. Richard, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
Should I quickly jump in?
Yeah. We have another minute, so you can.
Finance perspective, I think
Yes,
it's really important to look at both the demand for capital and supply of capital. And actually, we need to co-design solutions that incorporate both elements. So what is the end user looking for and need, but also what is needed by the investor, for example. If we're not designing those solutions from the onset with these partners, then it's maybe not likely that they would take it up. So it's important I think partnerships key to come together and see how we can actually co-design something together. That's very critical in my perspective.
Excellent.
Thanks, Peter.
Partnership and co-creation, that's of course at the heart of AICCRA. Thank you, Richard. With that, then I'll hand over. So it was a great discussion here. Thanks for all the inspiring comments and contributions. So I'll hand over to Madame Yaye for the concluding remarks of this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you to all the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished experts and partners, First of all, I would like to highlight the richness of the dialogue and the most interesting and promising direction that emerged. Let me just recall the aim of this session. That was to inspire, to trigger new dialogues and foster new opportunities for collaboration. We thank all the experts for the insightful contributions in an inspiring and constructive approach based on workable solutions to accelerate the large-scale adoption of a CSA by smallholder farmers while increasing their productivity and incomes. Acknowledgements, there are many partners involved in the AICCRA, and trying to name them all will almost lead to someone being left out. But thanks should go to Bruce Campbell and the CCAFS team for spearheading this ambitious initiative, which in many ways is a pioneering example of the One CGIAR in action. Then we should also acknowledge the regional and national partners. These are the real partnerships for delivering on which the promises of AICCRA will be realized. I believe that Irina Klichnikova and Michael Morris also deserve special mention as the World Bank champions driving this rather unusual project. AICCRA is grateful to you for your commitment and support, and we strongly encourage this dialogue to be continued and strengthened. So this is the end of this last session of AICCRA launching events. Thank you to all of you being with us during these 4 days, and all the best. Thank you so much.